Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Monday, the 13th of April, 2026. We are on our weekly Tawheed Halaqah. It is our 71st session. We are on volume 4, page 109, chapter 14. Ultimate authority rests with Islamic law. The evidences. Here in this chapter, we will detail the various aspects related to the detailed evidences from the Book of Allah and the Prophetic Sunnah, which stipulate the absolute limitation of sovereignty is to the Sharia. Thus far, the evidences arising from the Book of Allah are absolute and definitive, leaving no room for doubt or denial. Together, they point to a single immutable truth, that sovereignty belongs to the Sharia. It cannot reside or be assigned to human reason or abstraction like the people or the will of the people. In a similar manner, the Prophetic Sunnah provides this confirmation too. First subsection, the first aspect, absolute obedience to Allah and His Messenger. Textually, but also by the necessity and dictates of reason, this matter is abundantly clear as well as absolute. Indeed, the obligation to obey Allah, both Allah and His Messenger in absolute terms, is the judgment of reason which the Sharia has confirmed. Numerous evidences outline this principle quite clearly, including the following. من يطع الله ورسوله فقد أطاع الله ومن تولى فما أرسلناك عليهم حفيظا. Whoever obeys the messenger obeys Allah. If some pay no heed, we have not sent you to be their keeper. And that's 480. The next ayah, I'll do the translation, is say, if you love Allah, follow me, and Allah will love you and forgive you your sins. Allah is most forgiving, most merciful. Say, obey Allah and the Messenger. But if they turn away, know that Allah does not love those who ignore His commands. And that's Surah Ali Imran 31 to 32. These evidences are coupled with the warning of a severe punishment by failure to do so, namely the verse 59:7. So accept whatever the messenger gives you and abstain from whatever he forbids you. Be mindful of Allah. Allah is severe in punishment. Next verse. Whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger will have hell's fire as his permanent abode, permanent home. And that is Surah 59, verse 7. The next ayah, 72:23. That is, actually, no, I think this is Surah Nisa 13 to 14. These are the bounds set by Allah. Allah will admit those who obey Him and His Messenger to gardens graced with flowing streams, and there they will stay. That is a supreme triumph. But those who disobey Allah and His Messenger and overstep His limits will be consigned by Allah to the fire, and there they will stay. A humiliating torment awaits them. So just to give you a rundown of the ayah, it says 3:31 to 32, 59 to 7, 59 Surah 59:7, Surah 72:23 ayah, and then this was for Surah Nisa 13:14. Further to this, it is also understood from the verse relating to those wielding authority, which begins with the express command to obey Allah and obey the Messenger, and that's 4:59. Herein, the wording expresses a decisive, emphatic command in absolute terms. The verse further links that requirement of obedience to belief overall in Allah the Exalted and the Last Day. There is also a matter of negation relating to faith contained by way of contrast. If you believe in Allah, the final day, as explained by Sayyid Qutb, rahimahullah, who argued the following. In this short text, Allah the Exalted explains the condition of Al-Iman, the boundary markers of Islam, and the fundamental principle underpinning the system of governance for that of the Muslim community, the basis of all judgment and the source of all authority. All these begin and end with receiving guidance from Allah alone, and where there is no clear statement to refer to Him in any detail that may arise in life over which people may differ. Indeed, Al-Hakimiyyah belongs to Allah alone in all human life and all its affairs, large and small. To obey Allah is obligatory. Allah enacts the law. Implementation of this is thus obligatory. Al-Iman, its presence or absence, is tied to this implementation and obedience, as stated explicitly in the text of the Quran. If you truly believe in Allah and the Last Day, 459. The Imam Ibn Abi al-Iz al-Hanafi, may Allah have mercy upon him, said in Sharh al-Tahawiyah regarding the directive given to this ummah, we thus single him out, i.e. the Prophet, in matters pertaining to judgment, submission, compliance, and yielding. Similarly, as we single out that one must worship only his sender and surrender to him alone, looking only to his mercy and putting one's trust only in him. These are two aspects of Tawheed, and the person will not be saved from the hellfire unless he possesses both the belief in the oneness of the sender and belief in the distinctive following of the messenger. We do not refer judgment to anyone besides him, nor are we content with the ruling of anyone other than him. As will be quoted in full below, the verse concerning those in authority is one of Ayatul Hukm, which directly applies to the system of governing. Given that it commands obedience to those who are in authority, with the express wording of absolute obedience to Allah and His Messenger, this naturally requires refraining from obedience to anything else, and that obedience is realized only by carrying out everything that the lawgiver has commanded, together with avoiding that which he has prohibited. Hence, the Sharia retains the role as final arbitrator. Hence, in modern parlance, sovereignty resides there. Ultimately, this is al-rububiyyah in this life, and sovereignty resides nowhere else. The second aspect, no obedience to the creation in disobedience to the Creator. The mutawatir texts of the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah show the obligation that is rendered to the legitimate political authorities, with disobedience to them being haram. Yet this obedience is not expressed or couched in absolute terms. Instead, it is within the wide limits or bounds that the lawgiver has set. He has defined that the specific limits, conditions, and restrictions are contained within the framework of the Sharia. Readers can also refer to the separate study undertaken on this entitled Obedience to the Rulers. As noted earlier, this verse in full requires obedience to the legitimate political authority, as He, the Exalted, says, O you who believe, obey Allah and His Messenger and those in authority among you. If you are in dispute over any matter, refer it to Allah and the Messenger if you truly believe in Allah and the Last Day. That is better and fairer in the end. So that's 459. Obedience is an essential condition for the existence of order within the state or the political community, and for the preservation of unity within the Ummah. It would at first appear that Allah the Exalted commanded obedience without specific restriction. Yet the verse itself shows that disagreement may well arise, indeed even conflict, and that these matters are clarified by reference to Allah and His Messenger. Obedience to those holding positions of authority is not for its own sake, but rather because of the verse here, which outlines obedience to them from Allah the Exalted. Hence, it isn't a principle that stands separate on its own independently, but it is a branch of obedience to Allah. The prophetic Sunnah therefore provides additional clarification to this command of obedience and what its specific parameters entail. For example, obedience does not extend to committing a sin, as per the hadith narrated upon the authority of Ibn Umar, where he said, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, a Muslim must obey in what he likes and dislikes, unless he is ordered to do something sinful. If he is ordered to do something sinful, then there is no hearing or obedience. To reiterate the limits to the obedience, which the verse sets out, are set forth by Allah and His Messenger. Obedience does not go beyond the remits of what the Sharia has defined. Moreover, there is also the hadith of Abu Utbah al-Khawlani, where he reported that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, do not put my ummah into hardship. He said it 3 times. O Allah, whoever commands my ummah with that which you have not commanded them, then they are absolved from him. It is not lawful for the ruler to try and impose upon this ummah a law that hasn't been properly derived from the Sharia, let alone seek to completely derogate from that and to introduce man-made laws. No obedience results from contravention of this principle. Other restrictions also apply as set out in our separate works on this topic. Note well the wording as expressed in the verse cited earlier in 459. Inimitable in style, meaning an eloquence. Writing in Ruh al-Mani al-Ulusi commented with the following. The verb was repeated, SIC, obey, even though obedience to the messenger is conjoined with obedience to Allah out of reverence for his rank, peace and blessings be upon him, dispelling any misconception that compliance is required only with what is in the Quran. It further proclaims that he, peace and blessings be upon him, possesses an independent authority in obedience, a station granted to none besides him. Hence, in his saying, and those in authority among you, in 459, the verse was not repeated before that wording, singling that they hold no independent status in obedience comparable to that of the messenger, and peace and blessings be upon him. So the both occurrence of ati Allah, ati Rasul, and then wa ulil amri. That's what he's referring to, yeah? Okay. To reiterate this critical point, obedience to those in authority is subordinate to obedience to Allah and his messenger. It does not stand as this is your wording. It does not stand as an independent obedience in and of itself. Concerning obedience in matters of sin, the scholars have unanimously agreed that it is prohibited, as Imam An-Nawawi recorded the ijma in his commentary of Sahih Muslim. The basis of this ijma lies in both the necessity of Sharia and sound reason. The obedience required of the Ummah is not restricted nor absolute, but rather confined within the demarcated boundaries which have been set out by the lawgiver, that is, within the limits of the Sharia. Obedience in the context of those in authority or political authority generally arises from the prior command issued by Allah to obey them. They reserve no independent right in themselves. By necessity, that obedience is of a lower degree than the obedience to Allah and His Messenger, which is unequivocal and absolute. The Sharia and dictates of reason necessarily stipulate that commands emanating from a lower derivative authority fall under the commands of the higher original authority. Should a dispute or disparity arise, then without question the command of the higher original authority must prevail, and that stemming from the lower derivative authority becomes null and void. This is a clear logical imperative. Look at the following example. If the higher authority were to say, obey the lower authority, even if it commands you to disobey me, then in reality it would be setting forth a manner which is impossible by saying, obey me, by disobeying me from this very same authority upon the same matter. It's almost like a double negative. That's my words. Should the higher authority be the highest of all, namely Allah the Mighty and Sublime, then the severity of this impossibility becomes even more clearer. Allah is a necessarily existent being, the creator of minds and originator of all things. Such a contradiction cannot stand before His Majesty, leading to any notion that contradiction should even extend to His will, essence, or attribute. Reason and sensory perception, both of which are the masterful creation of Allah, would collapse, allowing the notion of doubt to creep into the most basic principles of the intellect. Allowing such an impossibility to occur would cause the intellect to crumble, undoing the Sharia itself, all of which would be delusion and insanity. We seek refuge in Allah from all of that. All of the texts of Sharia must be understood in this manner. If a transmitted text cannot be understood in this way, nor interpreted in a fitting manner, then it is impossible for it to be an authentic transmission. Such a text must necessarily be judged as fabricated, and its attribution being false. Given all of the above, the evidence shows that sovereignty belongs to the Sharia. Otherwise, it would be lawful for a ruler to impose all manner of laws not derived from the Sharia itself upon the Ummah, and then claim there is a religious obligation arising from the text to obey that. And yet we know with certitude that Islam has forbidden all its adherents from obedience to a ruler where sin and disobedience to Allah is commanded. By way of example, one can look at the incident concerning Al-Qama ibn Majaz's, may Allah be pleased with him, when he jokingly said to his detachment, I give you an order to jump into this fire. When he heard of this, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, whoever among you commands you to do something that involves disobedience to Allah, do not obey him. Moreover, obedience is also prohibited in matters of far greater magnitude, like when a ruler is legitimizing without recourse whatsoever to Allah and His Messenger, or he seeks to curtail, circumvent, or even abolish the Sharia altogether. As previously explained in chapter 11, it has been transmitted from the Messenger of Allah ﷺ by Tawatur that he said, there is no obedience to the creation in disobedience to the Creator. Everything other than Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, is created, be that mankind, the scholarly classes and rulers which emerge from mankind, all the way to the layperson. All are the creation of Allah. Hence, none of them may be obeyed, should that entail disobedience to Allah, the Exalted, Lord of creation. The magnitude of this amazing hadith alone suffices to demolish the chimera, which is the liberal democratic notion of the sovereignty of the people, uprooting it in its entirety. The one true and correct thought, the certain and established truth, is thereby realized in this matter absolutely, namely that the lawful and unlawful remain the sole criterion for deeds, on the proviso that the lawfully constituted ruler doesn't depart from his adherence to the Book of Allah and the prophetic Sunnah, from the Book of Allah, the prophetic Sunnah from the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessing be upon him. The general rule of obedience would therefore apply to all Muslims. Subsection 11, obedience. Notwithstanding the absolute clarity and definitiveness of which this matter rests upon, we are still able to find some who, despite professing Islam, declare the absolute opposite. A notable example is found in Minhaj as-Sunnah an-Nabawiyah. And what's this? It's from Ibn Taymiyyah, yeah? In addition to, and this is from Ibn Taymiyyah's work, in addition to that, many of the supporters of Banu Umayyah, or most of them, used to believe that a leader will not be judged in the hereafter, and he will not be punished in the hereafter, and that Allah will not judge them regarding their obedience to their leaders. Nay, it is obligatory upon them to obey their leaders in all matters, and that it is commanded, and that it is Allah who commanded them to do so. Their statement on this matter is well known to everybody. When Yazid ibn Abdul Malik was appointed as Khalif, he decided to follow the conduct and footsteps of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. But a group of their sheikhs went to him, and they swore before him by Allah, who has no partner, that if Allah gives power and authority to a person upon a people, he will accept from him all good deeds and forgive him all evil deeds. That is why you find most of their elders stating that an absolute obedience to a leader, which with authority, is obligatory, and that whoever obeys him has obeyed Allah, and that is why a similitude was coined for them, Da'at al-Shamiyah, Levantine obedience. So this is your comment. There does appear to be some leniency given to this matter by Ibn Taymiyyah, and not just by way of an apologetic, for immediately after explaining this, he wrote the following. Thus, those people are saying that their leaders are not commanding them but with the command of Allah, and there isn't any Shia among them. Indeed, many among them hate Ali and curse him. Whoever believes that whoever his leader commands is what Allah has commanded, that Allah will recompense him for that obedience, and that He will punish him for abandoning it. He will not need an infallible Imam other than his Imam. Thereafter, Ibn Taymiyyah proceeded to express his preference for those people over the Shia who believe in the concept of infallibility of the Imam. Here, I would that the common people are excused on the basis of profound ignorance, particularly given that historical reports do seem to indicate that many reached a level of cattle, or even were even more astray. Where does that exactly leave their scholars, as highlighted in the earlier quote? Those who swore before him, e.g., Yazid ibn Abdul Malik, that Allah, with whom there is no partner, if Allah gives power and authority to a person upon a people, He will accept from him all good deeds and forgive him all evil deeds. What about the tyrant and criminal Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, who was Hafiz al-Quran, who had the audacity to claim while besieging Abdullah ibn Zubair, O people of the Levant, fear Allah, commanding obedience. Historical reports also show that he was hesitant concerning the matter of the Kaaba until his overlord, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan ibn al-Hakam, the enemy of Allah, ordered him to bombard it with catapults, the artillery of that era. This is the very same Abdul Malik ibn Marwan who thought knowledge to the point that some had compared him to the renowned seven jurists of Medina. And yet he was also the very same individual who exclaimed to a group of his entourage when the conduct of Umar ibn al-Khattab was mentioned. End the mentioning of Umar, for bitterness towards rulers is a corruption for the subjects. Set out below are some of the infamous examples of the outrages committed by Al-Hajjaj, as noted in the Sunan Abu Dawood. Muhammad ibn al-Ala narrated to us, Abu Bakr narrated to us, from Asim, he said, I heard Al-Hajjaj say upon the Mimbar, fear Allah as much as possible. There is no exception in it. Hear and obey the Emir al-Mu'mineen Abdul Malik. There is no exception in it. I swear by Allah, if people came, if order people, I'm not sure. If I order or if order people to come, but from a certain gate of the mosque, and they come out from another gate, their blood and their properties will be lawful for me. I swear by Allah, if I see the tribe of Rabi'ah for the tribe of Mudr, it is lawful for me from Allah. Who will apologize to me for the slave of Hudayl, i.e. Ibn Masud, who thinks that his reading of the Quran is from Allah? I swear by Allah, it is a rhyme prose of the Bedouins. Allah did not reveal it to his Prophet ﷺ. Who will apologize to me for these clients, non-Arabs? One of them thinks that he will throw a stone, and when it falls on the ground, he says, something new has happened. I swear by Allah, I shall leave them ruined and perished, like the day that passes away. Abu Bakr ibn Ayyash said, I mentioned it to Al-Amash. He replied, I swear by Allah, I heard it from him. Some of that is colloquial meaning. It's not very difficult to understand what it means. Can you give us a gist of that, Doc?
What?
You know what he's saying with that? Who thinks that reading of he's critiquing Ibn Masud about the reading of Quran. What's that in relation to?
This is concerning reading, irrelevant. The other things are relevant. He gives himself the right. If he orders you to go through this door and you disobey, he has the right to kill you for that.
So basically, effectively, a had for he's imposing had with no in absolute terms.
Absolute contradiction to Sharia. And he thinks this is his right and right of Malik ibn Marwan. It's clear kufr. That's what the reading of Mas'ud. Don't worry about that. Just ignore that. It has no relevance.
Okay.
It's technicality.
What's the said? One of them thinks that he will throw a stone and then it falls on the ground. He says something new has happened. What is that in reference? That's just a rhetoric. Okay. Okay, no problems. Okay, I'll carry on. Qatan ibn Nusayr narrated to us, Ja'far, namely Ibn Sulaiman, narrated to us, Hawala, Sulaiman ibn Dawood, narrated to us from Sharik, from Sulaiman al-A'mash. He said, I prayed the Friday prayer with Al-Hajjaj, and he addressed us. He then mentioned the hadith of Abu Bakr ibn Ayyash. He said in it, hear and obey the Khalif of Allah and his select Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. He then transmitted the rest of the tradition and said, if I seized Rabi'ah for Mudr, but he did not mention the story of the client, i.e. non-Arabs. What does that mean? If I seized Rabi'ah for Mudr?
Something related to the tribes and so on. He can kill people. Okay. That's the essence. Don't worry about these fine details. What he meant that. If I attribute someone from Rabi'ah, you are not from Mudar, he has to obey, and things like that. So just giving extreme cases of just ordering nonsensical, and the people are supposed to be obligatory. That's the essential of the issue. I don't have in my mind the Arabic details, what he really meant and so on. I didn't bother about the details. The other things are more than enough. If I order you to go to this door of the mosque and you go from the other door, then your blood is, I can shed your blood legitimately and I can take your money. Meaning I can declare you to be a kafir and kill you. That's clear kufr from Hajjaj and his Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. You find the majority talk about tyrant, unjust, and so on. No. This clear kufr has been stressed like that. He's a tyrant and everything, but he's a kafir also. He's out of order of Islam. That has to be stressed and clearly stated. And this madhab must be absolutely rejected. It's anti-Islam.
Madkhalis, are they as bad as this, or would you say they're
not to that extreme, not expressed like that. This is nobody would express that so openly. Nobody reached the level of the American Quran yet. There's some people in Emirates, one guy said the state is above everyone, even above religion.
Madrui.
Mazrui. There will be some sycophants and criminal like that. But even he did it in some wording which maybe could be having a secondary interpretation. But the Hajjaj was clear. Absolutely nothing.
Shocking that it happened so early on. Uthman ibn Abi Shaybah narrated to us, Ibn Adris narrated to us from Al-A'mash. He said, I heard Al-Hajjaj saying, these clients, i.e. non-Arabs, are to be struck and cut off. I swear by Allah, if I strike a stick with a stick, I would eliminate them like the day that passed. He meant that non-Arab clients. Ishaq ibn Ismail al-Talqani narrated to us, Jarir narrated to us, Hawala and Zuhair ibn Harb narrated to us, Jarir narrated to us from Al-Mughira, from Al-Rabi' ibn Khalid al-Dabbi. He said, I heard Al-Hajjaj saying in an address, is a messenger of you in his dire need, more honor to him or his Khalif in his family. I thought in my mind, I make a vow for Allah that I shall never pray behind you. If I find people
Khalid said, I understood that he means that my Quran is superior in the eye of Allah to Muhammad. So he understood immediately. But he was a single person, say, if I fight people fight you, by Allah, I will fight with them. And he indeed did it in the Jamajim and was martyred in the Jamajim. Yeah, carry on the hadith.
Yeah. I thought in my mind, I make a vow for Allah that I will never pray behind you. If I find people who fight against you, I shall fight against you along with them. Ishaq added in his version, he fought in the battle of Jamajim until he was killed.
Yeah.
Abu Dhafar Abdul Salam narrated to us, Ja'far narrated to us from Auf. He said, I heard Al-Hajjaj addressing the people saying, the similitude of Uthman with Allah is like the similitude of Jesus, son of Mary. He then recited the following verse and he explained it. Allah said, O son of Mary, I will take you back and raise you up to me. I will purify you of the disbelievers. He was making a sign with his hand to us and to the people of the Levant. So this is to elevate Banu Umayyah, yeah?
Yeah.
Using someone's
comparing Uthman says Uthman is Uthman in the eye of Allah, like Isa in the eye of Allah. It's just an outrageous statement. These guys were taking absolute liberties and using the sword to enforce it.
Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik ibn Marwan was upon the sunnah of his father, like son. It was stated in Fath al-Bari by Ibn Hajar. I read in Al-Qada by Abu Ali al-Qarabisi. Ash-Shafi reports from his uncle, he is Muhammad ibn Ali. He said Ibn Shihab entered upon Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik and he asked him about the hadith. Indeed, when Allah entrusts a servant with the Khalifa, he records for him the good deeds and does not record for him the bad deeds. So he said to him in reply, this is a lie. Then he recited the verse, David, we have given you mastery over the land. Judge fairly between people. Do not follow your desires, lest they divert you from Allah's path. Those who wander from his path will have a painful torment because they ignore the day of reckoning. And that's reference to Ayah 30, Surah 38:26. Al-Walid, indeed, people are leading us away from our deen. One shouldn't be misled or deceived by Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik and imagine that he somehow abandoned his vile doctrine. No, by Allah, it was nothing but embarrassment, since he found no escape and did not dare to openly declare the Quran a lie. As for other cases, he was quite ready to do so. Take, for example, what is reported in Al-Aqd al-Farid. Al-Asma'i from Ishaq ibn Yahya from Ata ibn Yasir. He said, I said to Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik, Umar bin al-Khattab said, I wish I could leave the matter, the Khilafah, having it neither for me nor against me. So he replied, You lie. I replied, Or do you accuse him of lying? And I only escaped by the skin of my teeth. Whoever makes a deen out of the accursed Levantine obedience, indeed has none to blame but himself when the day of judgment comes and his deeds are made to appear to him, as the Quran says. Like a mirage in the desert, the thirsty person thinking they will be water, but when he gets there, he finds only Allah who pays him his account in full. Allah is swift in reckoning. That's Surah 24:39. Or he finds that Allah had already brought forth his deeds and rendered them as scattered dust, as is cited by Abu Nu'aym in Hilyat al-Awliya. Abdullah ibn Muhammad narrated to us. He is Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Ja'far, Abu al-Sheikh al-Asbahani. Abu Ali ibn Ibrahim narrated to us. Usayd ibn Asim narrated to us. Ismail ibn Amr narrated to us. He is Bajali al-Qufi, narrating in Isfahan. Qais, he is Ibn Rabi, narrated to us from Ammar al-Duni, from Atiyah, from Abu Sa'id. He said, I heard the Messenger of Allah saying, O people, there is no deen for the one who believes in denying a single verse from the Book of Allah. O people, there is no deen for one who believes in a falsehood he attributes to Allah. O people, there is no deen for the one who believes in obeying those who disobey Allah. Additional references for this tradition are found in other collections, while reported text is upright. Admittedly, the isnad isn't that good. That's your reference. Next subsection, the third aspect, the permanent obligation coupled with the absolute prohibition. This third aspect rests upon the permanent obligation to refer to the Sharia for judgment, coupled with the absolute prohibition of referring to anything else. Earlier in chapter 1, we outlined the meaning of the triliteral root hakama, HKM, and its 7 derived meanings from the Arabic language with specific reference to the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah. As such, the matter of al-ihtikam or al-tahakum is seeking the hukum of any type, be that in the form of passing verdict, the judicial, the implementation of such, and legislation by necessity. Concerning the obligation of referring to the Sharia exclusively, this is established by various textual evidences, such as where He, the Exalted, says, By your Lord, they will not be true believers until they let you decide between them in all matters of dispute, and find no resistance in their souls to your decisions, accepting them totally. And that's 465. If you're in dispute over any matter, refer it to Allah and the Messenger if you truly believe in Allah and the last day. That is better and fairer in the end. That's Surah 4:59. Next ayah. Whoever you may differ about is for Allah to judge. Say, such is Allah, my Lord, in Him I trust and to Him I return. And that's 42:10. Concerning the first verse that was mentioned, undoubtedly, this represents a comprehensive universal truth of Islam, which is presented in the form of a solemn oath. It is unrestricted by any condition, which negates the iman of the one who does not refer judgment to the Prophet ﷺ. There can be no room for delusion or ambiguity, claiming that going to judgment to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ means going to the judgment to his noble person alone, i.e., obedience to him in person when he is living, as has been falsely claimed by some of the so-called dawah carriers of the supposed Islamic left, or those who would call to secularism, yet thinly try and veil it in the cloak of Islamic paraphernalia. Rather, the verse means by necessity referring to the judgment to his Sharia and his methodology, and not merely to his honorable self only, as is clearly evident without the need to think deeply about it. Doubters or even detractors should consider the following proofs. Firstly, to claim otherwise would mean that the Sharia of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger would have no place after his death. In other words, the claim would be with the departure of the Prophet from this temporary world, Islam itself departs with him. The natural corollary to that would be to render the notion of the seal of prophethood as meaningless, that he was not in fact a mercy sent to all mankind. Such arguments should be clear falsehood, plain and simple for all to see. Additionally, if that line of reasoning were true, which it isn't, there wouldn't be any difference between the advent of his prophethood and its absence. It would further call into question all that the Quran mentioned, which in itself would be contrary to the established definitive proofs which we have. Secondly, we recognize by necessity from the mass of historical reports that the Prophet ﷺ did not undertake all aspects of ruling and judicial functions solely by himself. Rather, he appointed deputies, governors, judges, arms collectors in various places, including Mecca, Yemen, and Bahrain. Individuals holding these positions of office were overseeing public affairs, including the adjudication of disputes. This fact wasn't even uncommon in the prophetic city of Medina, with people referring to certain companions for legal responsa and dispute resolution. Given all of this, the wording as carried in the two verses previously mentioned, 465 and 42:10, necessarily means that arbitration and supremacy is the law of Allah, which his messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, brought, and did not simply to the body or personages of the messenger alone.
I'm sorry. It's obvious, it's trivial, but bringing everything, sometimes trivial things, if we explain them, become more complex.
So do secularists
some people argue that, yeah, there's some people who argue like that.
Do they rely on anything conceptually
strong? We discussed that. They rely on nothing. They're just trying to cover their kufr with such evident fallacies.
Mm-hmm. It can be argued that the legitimacy of going to those individuals for judgment only stems from the Prophet ﷺ, assigning them and appointing them in their task, and that consequently the one whom the Prophet did not appoint by text is not permitted to be sought out for judgment. This should be reworded. This cannot be said, as it contradicts the definitive text from the Book of Allah, of the Book and the Sunnah, which commands obedience to the lawfully constituted rulers. So I'm going to read this again. It cannot be argued that the legitimacy of going to those individuals for judgment only stems from the Prophet ﷺ, assigning them and appointing them in their task, and that consequently the one whom the Prophet did not appoint by text is not permitted to be sought out for judgment. I see, i.e. naming delegates verbatim by himself. Okay. This cannot be said, as it contradicts the definitive text from the Book and the Sunnah, which command obedience to the lawfully constituted rulers. Likewise, it affirms the validity of a judge's ruling if he judges according to what Allah has revealed, without favoritism or injustice, and that he deserves a reward and paradise for that. As per the saying from the Prophet ﷺ, 2 judges are in the fire and 1 is in paradise. With regards to the validity of optional arbitration, such as arising from where he, the exalted and majestic, says, if you believers fear that a couple may break up, appoint 1 arbiter from his family and 1 from hers. The majority of legal jurists hold that this is valid when initiated by the disputing spouses themselves or through the intervention of their families, even if it is not by the express order, edict, or even a directions notice arising from an official in a judicial capacity or even the ruler. No legal texts have reached us to censor this or require that it only arises from a judicial setting. Given the above, any claims purporting to argue that other than the Sharia is referred to for judgment is tantamount to denying the very essence of the final revelation was brought by the final messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. As the saying goes, it is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It is a denial of all the matters the Prophet ﷺ declared prohibited, all the warnings he expressed regarding the leaders of misguidance, the evil of the sects of the Khawarij, and the tyranny of despotic rulers. So what benefit is there in all of that? if he is not to be referred to for judgment, meaning if one does not return to him for legal response, adjudication, legislation, and its implementation. This view represents the denial and rejection of the ahadith related to the leaders of innovation and oppressive tyranny, which in their collective are mutawatir. In the case where the Prophet ﷺ stated that there would come after me, i.e., after his death, and that they would be in opposition to his sunnah, in addition to explaining the matter of how they would be dealt with. We have mentioned some of these previously from the hadith of Ubadah ibn as-Samit, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, and others, may Allah be pleased with them all. And indeed, this view also represents a denial and blatant rejection of the hadith, which always stipulate adherence to his sunnah, especially during the times of alienation and fitna, which are also in some mutawatir and impossible to escape from in regards to their authenticity and certainty. Thus, this statement or viewpoint that referring back to the messenger does not necessarily mean ruling by his law and methodology, but only means referring to his noble person, is therefore a blatant destruction of reason and intellect. Moreover, it constitutes ridda and manifest kufr. It is evil and even more vile than the words of the most extreme apostates during the time of Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, regarding whom the companions unanimously agreed on declaring them disbelievers and fighting them. And this too has been transmitted through Tawakkul. The ayah therefore negates al-Iman by way of a firm binding oath of any human who rejects going to the Sharia for judgment, and that means the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah. Moreover, the ayah demands that the Muslim feels no resistance or discomfort in his being when he goes to the Sharia for judgment, which could manifest in doubt, anger, dislike, aversion, contempt, disrespect, or any other manifestation of resistance. The ayah is to be understood in its apparent meaning and general sense. We know of no exception or qualifier that diverts it from its clear, evident meaning. Therefore, the Iman, which is negated in the verse, is the very foundation of Iman itself, which is the opposite of kufr, disbelief. It is the Iman which saves one from the eternal damnation of hell. With all these decisive evidences, we can state clearly that whoever does not judge by what Allah and His Messenger have decreed, nor refer back to them, nor seek judgment and resolution through them, and likewise whoever feels the slightest discomfort toward their ruling, is a kafir who has left the deen. This may be, though, original kufr in that he never truly entered into the fold of Islam, even if he outwardly displayed it in deceit and hypocrisy, knowingly and deliberately, or it may be that he was deluded, deceiving himself into thinking he was a Muslim who will be saved in the hereafter, while in reality he is not a Muslim, nor one who submits to Allah and His Messenger. Or it may be through ridda, apostasy, after having been a Muslim, by preferring misguidance over guidance, blindness over insight, and the worldly life over the hereafter. We seek refuge in Allah from all of that, as it inevitably leads to the fire of hell in utter disgrace and ruin. That much is clearly expressed in the wording expressed in the noble verse, where He, the Exalted, said, "If you are in dispute over any matter, refer it to Allah and the Messenger. If you truly believe in Allah and the Last Day, that is better and fairer in the end." 459. The verse is muhkam, decisive, in that it clearly shows the necessity of returning to the rulings of Islamic law mentioned in the Quran and prophetic Sunnah in the event of any dispute. The wording of "if you are in dispute over any matter" is indefinite in the context of negation and includes all matters of deen that believers may dispute over, whether minor or major, obvious or hidden. The obligation arising from this decisive verse provides certainty that every matter of potential disputation can be resolved by the Book of Allah and the prophetic Sunnah till the end of this temporal world. Indeed, one can ponder that if these texts did not provide clarification upon all such matters, then the command to refer back to them would not have been made. It would be inconceivable that Allah would order referral back in matters of disputation to that which cannot provide resolution, whether one looks at this legally or rationally. Looking at this matter from another aspect, one can discern that the verse has made referral back to the Sharia as one of the conditions of Iman. Should that referral back not exist, then neither does Iman, since the wording has, if you truly believe in Allah and the last day, 459. Hence arises the logical necessity that when the requisite is absent, the thing that depends on it is also absent. The negation of Iman in this context is not the negation of its obligatory or recommended completeness, but rather negation of its very foundation. That is the complete absence of Iman. This in turn entails falling into kufr and exiting the fold of Islam. Referring back to Allah the Exalted and Majestic is referring to the Sharia. Reference to anything other than Allah the Almighty is nothing except what mankind legislates for itself. Whether that legislation arises from the Western liberal democratic maxim of the rule of the people or majority, or it is from an appeal to abstract philosophical reasoning of the mind. That legislation and authority is not from the Sharia. Rather, it is nothing more than an appeal to basic instincts and other nefarious concepts. The Quranic texts leave no room for doubt that the Sharia alone is sovereign, and that it is the sole reference for enacting the constitution and any resultant laws or regulation. It is also the sole reference for all other matters, be that in terms of customs, morals, and traditions. It is the final recourse of all disputes, as Allah the Almighty says, "Whatever you may differ about is for Allah to judge. Say, such is Allah my Lord. In Him I trust and to Him I turn." And that's 42:10. In other words, here meaning that Allah is the one who is ultimate judge, that decides between you, and He declares what the ruling is. It is not lawful under any circumstances under the Sharia to allow referring to anything else, because it would invariably end up in kufr in Allah and His Messenger. Allah the Almighty explains clearly the response of the successful true believers in this matter. When the true believers are summoned to Allah and His Messenger in order for Him to judge between them, they say, "We hear and we obey." These are the ones who will prosper, and that's 24:51. Referring all matters to the Sharia is a clear obligation upon the entire Ummah and all its constituent parts. The obligation is the cornerstone of Iman, its fundamental foundational essence. It is not simply that one would be sinful for non-adherence in this respect, but that it ultimately ends in becoming a kafir and murtad, apostate, joining the ranks of the accursed mushrikeen and kafirin. What has been outlined thus far is a core axiom of Islam, and matter that wasn't unnoticed by the previous scholars either. Indeed, this is from the obvious and evident matters of Islam, which the scholars have agreed upon. As Imam Al-Jassas Al-Hanafi said, "Whoever rejects something from the commands of Allah the Almighty or the commands of the Messenger of Allah, he departs from the fold of Islam, regardless of whether he has rejected the matter arising from doubt in it, or he has done so out of abandoning the acceptance and refraining from the submission." Next ayah. Do you not see those who claim to believe in what has been sent down to you and in what has been sent down before you, yet still want to turn to unjust rulers, unjust tyrants for judgment, although they have been ordered to reject them? Satan wants to lead them far astray. That's 46:60. Regarding the interpretation of the aforementioned verse, Imam Ibn Kathir wrote the following in his acclaimed tafsir. This is a denial from Allah the Mighty and Sublime to those who claim to believe in what Allah has revealed to His Messenger and to the earlier prophets, yet they refer to other than the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger for judgment in various disputes. As has been mentioned concerning the reason of revelation for this verse, that it was a man from the Ansar and a Jew who had a dispute. And the Jew said, "Let us refer to Muhammad to judge between us." However, the Ansari man said, "Let us refer to Ka'b al-Ashraf to judge between us." It is also reported that the verse was revealed about some hypocrites who pretended to be Muslims, yet they thought to refer to the judgment of Jahiliyyah. Other reasons were also reported behind the revelation of the verse. However, this verse has a general meaning as it chastises all those who refrain from referring to the Quran and Sunnah for judgment, and prefer the judgment of whatever they choose of falsehood, which befits the description of Taghut here. Now, this is you. I would argue that the Imam has spoken the truth in this regard. The only exception to the comment being that the verse did not only limit condemnation to those who seek at the hakum to the Taghut, but rather it classified the action in two significant ways. Firstly, Imam bit Taghut, even though they had been commanded to specifically disbelieve in it and reject it. To submit to judgment by something is inevitably to have iman or faith in that thing. And this faith mentioned here is the opposite of kufr, which is disbelief. Hence, referring to matters for judgment to Allah and His Messenger is part of the very essence of iman, while refraining from it is kufr, being utterly contradictory to Islam, taking one outside of the fold of the deen. It is not merely a matter of sinfulness or disobedience, as we have already explained. Secondly, the aim of the shaitan in seeking to allure them with this is not merely to lead them to sin or lessen their good deeds. It is far more insidious because he wants to lead them far astray. Such profound misguidance is kufr and the departure from Islam, which would completely nullify all good deeds, and we seek refuge in Allah from such evil. This is also the viewpoint of Ibn al-Qayyim, and he argued, whoever refers for judgment or judges by anything other than Allah, other than what the Messenger has brought, has judged by Taghut and referred to it. Allah the Exalted has commanded us to disavow the Taghut. He says, and those who shun the Taghut, lest they worship it and turn to Allah in repentance, for them is good tidings. So give good tidings to my servants. And that's Surah 39:17. Okay, the translators notice they've opted for a literal translation to mention the word Taghut. Okay. So referring to the Sharia of the Taghut is one form of worship of the Taghut, which Allah has clearly commanded us to abandon and disavow. That turning away from the Taghut is a prerequisite for turning towards Allah. One must ask, how can a person return to Allah and face his Lord while he hasn't fully turned away from the Taghut and forsaken it? Can one not seek that the Taghut and Allah are at completely opposite poles? Allah, the Exalted, has commanded us with more than the mere avoidance of Taghut, since He has commanded disbelief in it. Naturally, this means a lot more than just mere avoidance, as it entails rejecting it, repudiating it, and denying it in all circumstances. If the Taghut goes further and becomes aggressive, that is, as an enemy or a belligerent foe, then we are commanded to despise it, loathe it, hate it, oppose it, and fight against it by every legitimate means. One can clearly discern this from the following verses, where He, the Mighty and Sublime, says, "There is no compulsion in deen. True guidance has become distinct from error. So whoever rejects Taghut and believes in Allah has grasped the firmest handhold, one that will never break. Allah is all-hearing and all-knowing. Allah is the ally of those who believe. He brings them out of the depths of darkness and into the light. As for the disbelievers, their allies are Taghut, who take them from the light into the depth of darkness. They are the inhabitants of the fire, and there they will remain." Even the imitators of Ibn Taymiyyah, who followed his flawed tripartite division of Tawheed, in particular the Wahhabi sect, which focuses almost entirely with this obsession with graves, have come closer to the truth concerning this matter. Recall earlier the quote from Ibn Abi al-Iz al-Hanafi from Sharh al-Tahawiyah. In reply, I would argue that referring judgment to the Messenger in its very essence referring judgment to Allah the Exalted, as have been exhaustively explained. Thus, referring judgment to Allah is another expression for acknowledging the Hakimiyya of Allah, which is the pinnacle of divinity. and this in itself is a worship of Allah. Consequently, there aren't two kinds of thus. There are not two kinds of Tawheed. There are not two kinds of Tawheed, nor three, but only one. Yet Ibn Abdul Aziz, though Hanafi in legal school, followed Ibn Taymiyyah in his flawed division of Tawheed, and so he fell into the confusion and failed to find the right path. Abdurrahman ibn Hassan al-Sheikh said, likewise, the one who calls upon the judgment of other than Allah and His Messenger has in fact abandoned what the Messenger, peace and blessing be upon him, brought, and has turned away from it and joined a partner with Allah in matters of obedience and contradicted that what Allah's Messenger and peace and blessings be upon him brought, that is which Allah commanded him with, when he said, O Prophet, judge between them according to what Allah has sent down, do not follow their whims. That's 549. And He Almighty says, by your Lord, they will not be true believers until they let you decide between them in all matters of dispute, and find no resistance in their souls to your decisions, accepting them totally. That's 465. Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Sheikh. Is that from the al-Sheikh line from Abdul Wahab? Okay. Making the judgments making the judgment go to the Sharia of Allah alone, to the exclusion of all besides Him, is a brother of worshipping Allah alone, to the exclusion of all besides Him. That is as the meaning of the two testimonials is that Allah is the one who is worshipped alone, without partner, and that His Messenger is the one who is followed, and judgment only belongs to what He came with. And the swords of jihad are not drawn except for the sake of that, or its purpose and its undertaking in terms of doing, abstaining, and going to judgment at the occurrence of dispute or disagreement. In this respect, the Sheikh has confused here between al-ibadah, worship, and al-ibadat, acts of worship. The latter relates to rites and ritual practices. Naturally, this is due to the primitive and degraded approach one comes to expect from the sect of Wahhabism, a reflection of the intellectual bankruptcy. Otherwise, referring to the judgment of Allah, submitting to it with full acceptance and inner contentment, is indeed the very essence of ibadah and its central pillar. And Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Sheikh, may Allah have mercy on him, says in his commentary on the verse 460, Allah has negated al-Iman from anyone who wanted to seek a tahakum from other than what the Messenger ﷺ and his family brought. Among the hypocrites, as the Exalted said, do you, Prophet, not see those who claim to believe in what has been sent down to you and in what is sent down before you, yet still want to turn to unjust tyrants for judgment, although they have been ordered to reject them? Satan wants to lead them far astray. It has been narrated from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq that he said, even if a people worshipped Allah, established the Salah, gave the Zakah, fasted the month of Ramadan, and made Hajj to the house, and then said concerning a matter that the Messenger of Allah did, if only he had done other than that, or if they found in themselves haraj, discomfort, unwillingness in respect to that, they would be from the mushrikeen. That is because, this is your commentary, that is because what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ came with was only legislated from Allah the Exalted, and because the command to obey Allah and His Messenger is a command with the obligation to follow the book and the prophetic sunnah, it is for that reason that the foundational legal principle or maxim states, whoever accuses or doubts in the truthfulness of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ in respect to the hukum is a kafir. Therefore, Sharia alone holds absolute authority over all aspects of life and human relations, and it is not permissible, according to the law, to reject any part of Islam that has been established by evidence. Okay. The fourth aspect. Every law other than the law of Allah is kufr, and every ruler who judges by other than the law of Allah is a taghut. Taking in the round, general terms, The text established from the Book of Allah indicated that every law, other than that of the Sharia, which includes man-made laws, are nothing but outright kufr. The text did not only limit themselves to mentioning the absolute obligation of obedience to Allah and His Messenger without any accompanying restriction or condition, that there is an outright prohibition of obedience to the creation in disobedience to the Creator, and reference and seeking judgment to any law other than the Sharia is likewise prohibited. Rather, the Sharia condemned in the strongest manner appealing to the Taghut by declaring that an act of kufr, which is in stark contrast to Iman and Islam, a matter which ultimately leads to manifest misguidance and damnation in the hereafter. Laws other than the laws of Islam are not revealed by Allah, nor are they derived from that which was sent down to the messenger. And ultimately the human mind, if we are kind, are in actuality what the law other than Islam is founded upon. Stated differently, desire and sheer tyranny drive lawmakers. Man legislates primarily law, even secondary legal judgments, found upon that which is ultimately there to govern human actions. But such legislation is taghut because it is not engendering what will entail praise, reward, or censure from Allah in this world, let alone the repercussions in the hereafter. As noted previously, already in this chapter, the wording of the verse 460 commands disbelief in the taghut. Moreover, the matter of taghut is broader than falsehood, being far more insidious and atrocious. For taghut here means that which stands in opposition to ruling by what Allah has revealed, namely ruling by Jahiliyyah, and undoubtedly that is kufr. As mentioned earlier too, that is also the viewpoint held by Ibn al-Qayyim. The taghut of every people is that to which they refer for judgment besides Allah and His final messenger, or that which they follow without any clear guidance being derived from Allah, or that which they also worship instead of Allah. That worship is either that which is commonly viewed as partaking in rituals and veneration, or even with the worship of submission, entailing obedience and allegiance. The Taghut is also every caller towards falsehood and misguidance. As such, Iblis, may Allah's curse be upon him, is a Taghut. Indeed, he is the head of the Tawheed, the high priest of Taghut and its enchanter. A soothsayer and sorcerer are Taghut, as is the ruler who rules and judges by other than what Allah has revealed, and the one who legislates without reference to Allah. Indeed, he is from the heads and leaders of the Tawheed. Whoever were to have the audacity to call the people of worship to the people to worship him is also a Taghut among their vile heads, as is whoever is pleased to be worshipped besides Allah. One should note that this is not an exhaustive list, given that there are numerous Taghut. As outlined or as already outlined to date, one of the critical factors is to determine to where judgment is referred, and to not necessarily fixate on the position of or office of holders of power. The system to which judgment is sought and referred to, if it is not ruling by what Allah has revealed, is a taghut, and by necessity it is a system of kufr. Such a system is therefore inherently not Islamic. Every law other than the law of Allah is kufr, and every ruler who rules by other than what Allah has revealed is by necessity a wretched taghut. In Majmu' al-Fatawa, Ibn Taymiyyah said, "None has the right to judge between any of the creation of Allah, neither Muslims, disbelievers, nor anyone else except by the hukum of Allah and His Messenger. Whoever seeks other than that is included in where He, the Almighty, said, do they want judgment according to the time of pagan ignorance? Is there any better judge than Allah for those of firm faith?" And that's 550. And he, the Exalted, said, "By your Lord, they will not be true believers until they let you decide between them in all matters of dispute, and find no resistance in their souls to your decisions, accepting them totally. And that's 465. Writing in Minhaj as-Sunnah, Ibn Taymiyyah also said, there is no doubt that whoever does not believe in the obligation of ruling by what Allah has revealed to His Messenger is a kafir. Whoever deems it lawful to judge between them by what to judge between the people by what he views and he holds as just, without following what Allah has revealed, he is a kafir. There is no nation except that it orders ruling with justice and sometimes justice as perceived by its senior leaders. So if they know that it is not lawful to rule except by what Allah has revealed and did not adhere to that, but in fact declared it to be lawful for themselves to rule it in opposition to what Allah has revealed, then they are kuffar themselves, disbelievers. They are kuffar, disbelievers. There is also another quote of relevance from Ibn Taymiyyah where he said, when a person makes lawful what is unanimously agreed upon as haram, or prohibits what is unanimously agreed upon as halal, or changes a unanimously agreed upon law, then he is murtad, apostate. Note the wording as expressed by Ibn Taymiyyah regarding this matter of changing the law. It is also noteworthy that he didn't expressly connect this to a matter of creedal belief. The famous Maliki scholar Ash-Shankiti wrote the following in Adwa al-Bayan: associating partners with Allah in His hukum and associating partners with Him in ibadah are one and the same. There is absolutely no difference between them. Whoever follows a system other than Allah's system, or legislation other than Allah's legislation, and whoever worships an idol or prostrates before it, there is no difference between them at all. They are the same, and both are mushrikeen with respect to Allah. Since a tashri' legislation and all ahkam rulings, whether religious or universal decrees, are among the exclusive attributes of ar-rububiyyah, as indicated by the aforementioned verses, then whoever follows a legislation other than Allah's legislation has taken that legislator as a lord and has associated him with Allah. Okay, that's just a question. So Ibn Taymiyyah being unequivocal in this, in terms of just the mere legislation, how do the Madakhila wiggle around that? Well, seeing as he's
Ask him.
almost
I'll go and ask him.
okay, but as from your own experience, did they, your own interaction with them, did they caveat this in some way or just completely ignore it?
You have their videos. Ask them. Ask me. Ask them. They don't mention that. They just gloss over it. That's it.
That could be a good one to smash them with. At least if Daniel Hakika too is listening, that's a good one to smash Wahhabis with, because they claim they feign obedience to Ibn Taymiyyah, and this is unequivocal. And Saudi river banking and citizenship law violating Islam.
Yeah.
The quotes from Shankiti are noteworthy. The generalities of the evidences show the necessity of following what the Messenger Sallallahu brought, because what was revealed to him was the only guidance. Allah the Exalted says, and this is 4115, if anyone opposes the Messenger after guidance has been made clear to him and follows a path other than that of the believers, we shall leave him on his path, chosen path. We shall burn him in hell, an evil destination. Every manhaj other than the manhaj of guidance brought by the Messenger Sallallahu and his family is other than the way of the believers, and every Salam and his ahli is other than the way of the believers, and every way apart from this way is disbelief in Allah, for disbelief in Allah and His Messenger is contrary to the way of the believers and their manhaj, which in every aspect is the opposite of disbelief. Similarly, whoever accuses the Messenger, peace and blessing be upon him, in his judgment is a kafir, because he has opposed the general evidences that link al-iman to the obligation of following what Islam has brought. Writing in Al-I'tisam, Ash-Shatibi said, every bid'ah innovation, even if it is small, is either an addition to us or a subtraction from the law, or an alteration to the sound foundation. All of this may be attached to what is divinely prescribed, thereby impairing what has been legislated. And if someone were to do such a thing deliberately within the very Sharia itself, he would fall into kufr for adding to it, subtracting from it, or altering it, whether greatly or by itself or by little is kufr. Hence, there isn't a difference between what is great or small. Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ibrahim said in his letter addressed to the Emir of Riyadh, and giving consideration to anything from the laws for the ruling by them, even in the smallest amount, no doubt represents the absence of contentment with the hukum of Allah and His Messenger, attributing the hukum of Allah and His Messenger to that which is deficient, not undertaking the duty in respect to resolving the dispute, not delivering the rights to their arbab, not taking the ruling of the laws towards perfection, and not fulfilling the duty towards the people in respect to solving their problems. The i'tiqad, belief in this, is kufr, removing one from the millah. It represents a major and significant matter and is not from the matters of ijtihad. The words of the Sheikh are very good. However, the Sheikh, may Allah have mercy upon him, tied that conclusion, i.e., of declaring disbelief, to it being the representative of absence of contentment, and attributing the hukum to that which is deficient. Although this is predominant, it nonetheless does not represent the reality upon which the hukum is applied. That is because the mere legislation from other than Allah represents a contestation in His rububiyyah, in the case where the one engaged in that makes of himself a Rabb, Lord, Ilah, God, and a Nid, rival besides Allah. He is therefore a Taghut, a Mushrik, and Kafir. His kufr is on the most repugnant forms of kufr, by his mere action alone, regardless of the circumstances of his heart. Otherwise, what is the judgment which is to be applied upon the man in the governorate of Riyadh, who is desperate to preserve his position and authority by enacting legislation that he knows for certain is in opposition to the Sharia of Allah? That is, while he is certain in himself that in violation to the Sharia of Allah, and that the Sharia is best and the truth. Is he not a taghut? Is his love for the authority and dunya an excuse for him in respect to the kufr? If not, we would be denying what Allah has stated and absolving the family of the Pharaoh, concerning whom they denied them in their wickedness and their pride, even though their souls acknowledged them as true. And that's 27:14. So basically, they had tasdeeq, but they didn't submit. And the same
Yeah,
example of the
exactly.
children. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
it's not just
not sort of love, affection, contentment. No. That's a fundamental point. Submission. Tasdeeq is not enough. And if there is no submission, or say liking, disliking is irrelevant. Submission is fundamental.
They did that in order to retain their absolute power and keep the children of Israel in servitude. And the next verse, they said, are we to believe in two mortals like us, and their people are our servants? And that's 23:47. These people, who were the heads of the greatest state in the world at that time, possessed treasures, lived in their own bubble, which they considered a paradise, and had rivers flowing beneath them. So by Allah, they were more deserving of an excuse. Sheikh Muhammad Hamid Al-Faqi, may Allah's mercy be upon him, said it in his commentary upon Muhammad Miao's Kitab Al-Tawheed, regarding the one who goes to man-made law for judgment. Undoubtedly, he is a kafir murtad if he insists upon them and does not return to the rulings by what Allah has revealed. No name that he has given, and no name that has been given, and no actions from among the apparent acts of prayer, fasting, pilgrimage, and so on will benefit him at all. Regarding referring to man-made laws for judgment, Sheikh Ahmed Shakir, may Allah have mercy upon him, said, this act represents aversion to the hukum of Allah and to His deen, and means giving preference to the rulings of the people of kufr over the hukum of Allah. None from among the people of the Qibla, regardless of their differences, have any doubt in respect to declaring the one who states, holds, or carries this belief to be a kafir. Do they want judgment according to the time of pagan ignorance? Is there any better judge than Allah for those of firm faith? And that's 550. Regarding the tafsir of this verse, Imam Ibn Qasir famously penned the following. Allah denounces those who deviate from Allah's commandments, which include every type of righteous deed, righteous good thing, and prohibits every type of evil. But they refer to opinion, desires, and customs that people themselves invented, all of which have no basis in Allah's deen. During the time of Jahiliyyah, the people used to abide by the misguidance and ignorance that they invented by sheer opinion and lust. That Tartars abided by the law that they inherited from their king. Genghis Khan, who wrote Al-Yasiq for them, this book contains some rulings that were derived from various religions, such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Many of these rulings were derived from his own opinion and desire. Later on, these rulings became the followed law among his children, preferring them to the law of the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of his Messenger, peace be upon him. Therefore, whoever does this, he is a kafir, who deserves to be fought against until he reverts to the decisions of Allah and his Messenger, so that no law, major or minor, is referred to except his law. Allah said, do they want judgment according to the time of pagan ignorance, meaning they desire and want this and ignore Allah's hukum? What misguidance is more abominable than this is your commentary, than the ruling by other than what Allah has revealed? And what desire is worse than to go for judgment to desires, and which taghut is greater than making the created human being undertake that which belongs to the Creator to establish by making the human mind the legislature and the hakim, and which kufr is greater in extent than that of those who are created, following others who have been created like them, whilst leaving that which Allah has revealed upon His Messenger ﷺ. Ruling by what Allah has revealed is adherence to the Sharia, while ruling by other than what Allah has revealed is adherence to kufr. The Sharia alone is the truth, and beyond the truth there is nothing but misguidance. Therefore, it is not permissible for any human being to make something other than the Sharia to be the foundation of judgment and ruling. All that has been conjured from desires and misguidance, including what has been called socialism, capitalism, liberal democracy, civilizational particularities, nationalistic and tribal customs, and traditions, only represent the ruling by other than what Allah has revealed. As for such ruling, there is only the saying of the exalted. Those who do not judge according to what Allah has revealed, they are the disbelievers. That is because, that's from Surah Ma'idah, that is because every law the people go to for judgment other than Islam, as has been explicitly mentioned in the Quran, is taghut. The Jahiliyyah of the ignorant and man's return to apostasy that will make them fall into the fire of hell. This represents the pathway of other than the believers. As for the path of Islam, then that is the path of those who have believed, and it is what provides life in the temporal domain and the hereafter. He, the Exalted, says, O you who believe, respond to Allah and His Messenger when He calls you to that which gives you life. Know that Allah comes between a man and his heart, and that you will be gathered to Him. Surah 8:24. Sayyid Qutb said, there is but one Sharia. It is the Sharia of Islam, and everything besides it is but vain desires. From the sum of these texts, it is evident that the hukum by other than the Sharia of Allah represents al-kufr, al-sarah, al-buwah, the clear, explicit, and manifest disbelief. Every statute, law, system, and constitution that does not emanate from the Islamic doctrinal creed is a taghut, which is obligatory to disbelieve in. This is because Islam is a deen which Allah revealed upon His Messenger ﷺ, and it is a complete and final deen, and as such, no deen other than it, and no Sharia other than its Sharia is accepted from humanity, and indeed even the jinn. As for Western democracy, which at least nowadays is in theory assigns sovereignty to man, then it is a system formulated by man from his deficient mind, which does not encompass all matters, not to mention its exposure to whims, desires, misguidance, and its subservience to self-egoism, tribalism, nationalism, factional interests, classism, and prejudice. Even if we were to suppose, for the sake of argument, that Western democracy was complete, acceptable rationally, it is still nevertheless deficient, not from what Allah has definitely not from what Allah has legislated. It is not from Islam because Islam is what Allah legislated and not the mind. It is not from Islam because Islam is what Allah legislated and not the mind or any human being, regardless of the extent of its completeness, its conformity to the mind, concord with nature, or the absence of all that. Similarly, in respect to whoever did that, believing that leaving the hukum by Allah has revealed is allowed and permitted for him, even in this case, he believed that the Sharia of Allah is the best, most complete, and has precedence. Just want to repeat that. Similarly, in respect to whoever did that, believing that leaving the hukum by Allah has revealed and is allowed and permitted for him, even if in this case he believed that the Sharia of Allah is the best, most complete, and precedence. Are you saying here that irrespective of him saying that Allah's hukum is best, just the man here
is irrelevant. The only thing is that Allah is the only one to be accepted. Best or not, this is not relevant.
Because this is sometimes a bit of irja that creeps in, isn't it? In terms of
believing it's best or what that's better, but this is still acceptable. No, the other one is not acceptable. Even if it's best in any other sense you can imagine, is irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean,
the one is best by intrinsic other reasons, but this is not the issue. The issue is the only one to be accepted and the only allowed to be referred to. That's the meaning of Tawheed. Best, not best, easiest, not easiest, this is all irrelevant. Fulfilling maslahah, not fulfilling maslahah is also irrelevant.
Are you arguing here for enactment or in principle? Because in enactment, some people use the whole.
It's irrelevant. The fundamental principle is the ruling of Allah is absolute, and that's it. It's not matter of comparing with it. It's the better one for itself, definitely, but this is not an issue. It's not the reason you refer to it because it's the better one. It's because it is the only one to be referred to.
This is divine.
The only one. That's divine sovereignty. It's the only one to be referred to. That's the better, fulfilling needs better. Most likely it will be, but this is not an issue. That's a secondary issue. Answering a old philosophical question. Is something is good because the gods, as the Greek were pagan philosopher pagan said, is something is good because the gods has ordered it, or it is good in itself? That's the reason the gods have ordered it. But this is an empty question. We have answered that earlier in the book of Tawheed. That things are, if you say things are good in themselves, like a food is good and very nutritious. This is not by some kind of obsolete principles, but Allah creation and best. He made it this way. And his command to eat, to allow this food is his command. They usually synchronize, but he could make it so that he prohibits some good foods just for exercise the sovereignty. Like the first tree. And it was a whatever tree it was, maybe an apple tree or something. Definitely apple tree is good for the health. But that specific one was prohibited. Just to exercise sovereignty, to test obedience. That's absolute, cannot be discussed about it. And the apple tree, the original apple tree, the specific one, which Adam told not to touch that one, assuming it's a specific one, not a genus. That also was good, synchronized with the physiology of Adam by Allah creation. There's no necessity in a universe that in any universe something called apple tree must be good. No, that's not true. In other universe there may no apple tree in existence in the first place. They're completely different, and so on. So that answers the question of this: is it good because Allah commanded? It's what Allah commands is that what we obeyed. Is it good in the sense of biology and things like that? Maybe, maybe not, but depending upon the Sharia itself. In some Sharia, there are restrictions liberty for punishment, like in the case of Judaism, there are certain chains and so on, and then Allah has the liberty to abrogate them or enforce them. Let's discuss easily in the this question are irrelevant, completely irrelevant in that issue. Tawheed meaning the only reference which Allah is allowed is to Allah and His Messenger, to divine sovereignty. That's the absolute, which must be acknowledged and submitted to. That's the absolute. By the necessity of reason, and it's also the absolute by matter of accounting for Yawm al-Qiyamah, that this will be questioned in Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's it. So it became a Sharia obligation in that sense. It's a rational necessity by itself, but is it really a Sharia necessity, meaning there will be accounting in Yawm al-Qiyamah for it? The revelation tells us, yes, that's being commanded. If you receive a revelation, then you are obliged to receive the revelation and accept. If you don't receive a revelation, then do whatever you want. There's no law has come. You are in a state of lawlessness, then you can manage your affairs, whatever management you would like, until Sharia comes. We discussed that also in Usul. The question, what is the ruling of Ahkam before the revelation has come? Some people will say permissibility, some say this is a void question, because before the Sharia has come, they have no ruling. Human act according to by physiology and biology and feeling. And until Allah addresses them, they are liberty to do it. And you cannot account them Yawm al-Qiyamah. Say, we did not send. You don't tell us what we are supposed to do. He'll never ask them about that. But after the messenger, then the question will come. Then it becomes Sharia obligation. So after the Sharia has come, basic ruling was permissibility. And then specific ruling and other details has come. Before that, before the Sharia has come, what's the basic ruling? Nothing. No, there's no ruling. There's no Sharia yet. So you cannot say what's the Sharia ruling about the human activities before the Sharia has come. It's like, what is the Sharia before Sharia? It doesn't make any sense. But some ask this question without really pondering about its internal contradiction.
What about those nations who have never been properly exposed to divine revelation? Like certain people in islands and even
irrelevant. They have no obligation. They will not be asked about the Yawm al-Qiyamah.
But what if they do the zulm to one another and they know due to the fitrah that
don't worry about no one fitrah. Fitrah is irrelevant. This fitrah will not be asked Yawm al-Qiyamah. The fitrah Yawm al-Qiyamah will be asked to tell the people, I gave you a fitrah, I gave you a head start as a boy.
No. What I mean is this: the hypothetical scenario is, let's say in the Americas, the native tribesmen, they didn't receive any divine revelation, so they had no law that was binding upon them. But if there were people amongst them who were dhullam, doing dhulm to one another, and they knew it was dhulm due to the fitrah and the aql, whatever you want to call it, are they not going to be punished on Yawm al-Qiyamah due to the dhulm they've been committing?
We don't know. We leave that to Allah to judge Yawm al-Qiyamah. But philosophically, from our point of view, there is the Sharia has not addressed them. Allah will not account them that I addressed you and you disobeyed. It may be there's an address about internal things and instinct. The Quran is not clear about that. It seems to be the one hadith says that even Yawm al-Qiyamah, the sheep with horn will be accounted if it rams the sheep without horn. This may be metaphorical to mean justice will be established absolutely Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's allegorical, or maybe it is really happening like that. And some scholars said after that, after settling the account between animals, they will be turned into dust. Is it metaphorical or not? I think this question is secondary and of no relevance. It doesn't bring us any closer. Because what we are looking at, what will be valid in Yawm al-Qiyamah will be questioned there, and Allah will not question, accept something if He has. But He says clearly, after the Rusul, they have, before the Rusul, they have Hujjah. It's impossible Yawm al-Qiyamah that you defeat Allah in the argument. And the only way you defeat Him is to say, you are asking me to do something, but you don't send me a messenger.
Exactly, which is not possible.
That's it. Fitrah, yes, I gave you a head start. Still, with the head start, you failed. That's just to rebuke you. That's not to account you. When He account, maybe there's another reason. He will explain Yawm al-Qiyamah in such a way that you have no answer to it. Leave that to its good time. Don't bother your head with that. Fundamentally, that's what we have. That accounting based on rational competence and receiving the message from Him in such a way that any denial of the message, you are guilty of rejecting what the evidence has come with the table. So, fundamentally, all these extra things about the people in the Amazon, the people before any message has come, and the old message has completely expired and is not, for example, after a messenger has come, for example, and the people comply, and then generation after generation in ancient time before writing and so on, after a few generations, nothing is remaining. Even oral memory usually disappears after 3-4 generations. Then it's not enough authority to account the 10th generation for that a messenger who's come 10 generations before, the time before writing and so on. That's then to be sorted by Allah Yawm al-Qiyamah. He knows exactly what's going on there. In principle, if that 10th generation did not receive the message from previous generation in such a persuasive manner so that an argument can be settled properly Yawm al-Qiyamah, they are in the state of no Sharia.
Yeah, exactly. I find it interesting.
Extra points may be settled Yawm al-Qiyamah.
It's also interesting that Allah says in the Quran, if Allah had willed, He would have sent a Rasul to every qaryah, to every village or town. But then Allah does not give the reasoning on why He did not do that. He leaves it blank.
Leave it blank. And the reason that in certain areas, it's more merciful for the people to live in them like that. Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will be maybe sub-accounting like the animals. And then because they are human beings and they're created for eternity, they will be entering in the lower level of paradise, for example.
Ustad, by the way, another topic that a lot of non-Muslims, as you know, bring up is Nubuwah in the Quranic paradigm, is Nubuwah confined to Bani Ibrahim? Or were there Anbiya? Like, you know, this is a famous question. Usually the famous answer
usually say that
yeah, exactly.
That's the form, the linguistic form does not mean exclusion. I mean, the majority of it.
Yeah, majority.
Otherwise, the exclusion forms are known in Arabic.
Yeah.
If we would have said, like, in al-hukm ila Allah, ruling is but for Allah, meaning outside that there is no hukm, it's not accepted.
Yes.
But in the case of that, the majority of prophets after that, Ibrahim, but there's nothing really in that verse.
You know, other verse.
After Ibrahim, there's a Nabi maybe in China.
They are shuhada lin-nas. Ibrahim, shuhada lin-nas. Yani they are the spiritual role models for other nations.
But from history, you know that it was concentrated in the offspring of Ibrahim and concentrated in the center between the 3 main old continents. That's in Palestine. That's the reason of the shows of that area. It's in the cross area of the old continents, and they will be like the incubator for prophethood.
Yeah, the reason why I brought this up is because when you look at the other passages of the Quran, Allah describes Bani Ibrahim as shuhada lin-nas. So they will be the shaheed, similar to how Rasulullah was a witness for them to the other peoples.
Additionally, someone could say, after Ibrahim, the prophethood was restricted in his, or the Quran is not say restricted in the strict sense, in this, and then from his offsprings, some of them may be dispatched to China, and some dispatched over the ocean, across the ocean to the Amazon. We don't know. We have no record in history like that. Actually, at one point, recently by Professor Tabor, he claims there have been found artifacts in Arizona and so on, which indicates, and people have inscribed the 10 Commandments and mentioned that they left Palestine by order of Suleiman and so on, after an eclipse of years, so and so on, and they got there. If that finding is genuine and is not fabricated, it doesn't seem to be fabricated. I didn't hear very much about that. And he was fooled by some skilled fabricator, because you can go to the mountains and do things. But it looks genuine, meaning 10th century before Christ, some people crossed the ocean. And they settled there, and then the settlement does not exist, just some artifact, some inscription on stones. And that even the 10 Commandments, even the one who inscribed, they made an error. The 4th one was missed, and he wrote it at the side and made a sign that it should be inserted there back. So it looks very genuine. But you never know. If some artifacts are really... So if that's true, meaning they have been either went there just by for detection, or maybe Suleiman received the message, sent these people to that place.
Also, Thomas was, for example, he traveled to India, historically speaking. Is that not correct?
That's in the case of Christian. They claim this story that he was sent to India. So this may be this way.
Maybe.
From certain tribe, but they are sent and learn that language by divine education. Like Isa, was speaking and having languages when he was born. Maybe this is miraculously descent. All of that's possible. That's history. It would be enjoyable to study that. But still, there might be areas Allah just did not send to them, which might be an act of mercy, because this way they are saved from the accounting of Al-Qiyamah.
Yeah.
And nobody is at liberty, another nation say, you did not send to these people, not accounting them, and we are sent and we are now suffering hellfire. They have no right to ask this question. This is the divine sovereignty. I choose these, I choose you. Just
also, every individual has the capacity and potential to pass the divine test. I think this needs to be emphasized.
We could say also the people in Amazon, some people with their wisdom recognize and commit themselves to certain principles.
Yeah.
Because they say it from Fitra and they have that insight. They will have higher rank than others because they did it by their own struggle.
Yeah.
So all of these complicated things to be settled يوم القيامة. The Quran says in one place, فإذا جاء أجلهم about the various nations, فإن الله كان بعباده إيش؟ بصيرة.
Yeah.
You know their situation. Don't worry, Muhammad, don't bother your head about them. I know how to deal with them.
Yes.
To me. So I think it's safer not to discuss this issue. I think it's going in these issues more than what we discuss now just casually, I think is a satanic question.
Maybe.
That's a question which cannot be answered in a conclusive way, in a fundamental way, except by referring to Yawm al-Qiyamah to Allah again. And the devil wants you to go into circle. That's what I call a satanic question. The best answer say, what happened to the people of Amazon? I think Allah knows the situation better. And he is more just than you think. So he can manage them. Why are you asking about them? Ask about yourself. That will be the correct answer. Don't bother about this. What happened to them? What happened to them? What Allah decide. And he is the most just and the most perfect and supreme. So why are you bothering your head? Did Allah tell you, come and do the judging in my behalf, sit on the court in my behalf? No. So why are you putting your nose in an affair which is none of yours? If you do that, you may get a bloody nose. Just regards to get off that business. Get the business which is relevant for you. I would say this really more like a teasing answer, but it's the right way to answer that issue. And the whole area, in that area, what's the view of Fatra, what will happen, and all these, you find, for example, Al-Qayyim, and when he discussed Jannah and so on, he mentioned 4 theories about what will happen, the people of Fatra, or those who died as children, for example. 4 or 5 theories. When I read them in time past, it was very persuasive. Later on now, when I read them, I just laugh.
Yeah.
Man with the mind of go in this now. He would say, just leave to Allah. Will manage it better than all your imagination and all your imaginary constructions. Yes. And most of these relying on weak ahadith or constructed ahadith.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, these are the principle there. These are qatl, based on necessity of reason. We stick to these. The
awesome.
issue that his law is the supreme and the absolute is an absolute question. It's unnegotiable. Is it the better, not the better? How it fits with maslaha, how it mafsada? This is details of secondary level of importance. And they are settled by the Quran. But when they say about the messenger, the last messenger who will come, what does it give him characteristic? الذين النبي الأمي العربية الذين مكتوبا عنده what is the characteristic of this final messenger which was announced in Mount Sinai, which is still in Deuteronomy, I think chapter 20. What says? The main characteristic, what says the main characteristic? First one, I think يأمرهم بالمعروف وينهاهم عن المنكر. So established accounting rulership, meaning he would establish governance on earth based most likely in shura and accountability. That's the meaning of accounting for ordering. It is not optional, it's obligatory. It's a society based on parties, organizations criticizing each other, accounting the rulers. I guarantee this one will be allowing all good things. When طيبات meaning the things in the universe according to the laws of the universe, which again created by Allah. This طيبات will be halal.
Intrinsically good.
Yeah. And prohibit the evil things.
The khaba'ith.
The khaba'ith. No exception in that case. While in Bani Israel, طيبات had been prohibited for them as a punishment due to divine sovereignty. وبظلم الذين هادوا حرمنا طيبات أحلت لهم. يعني before it was وبصدم عن سبيل الله as a punishment. It's just divine sovereignty. That will not happen with the final messenger. And then they were also given injunction which make them under yokes and force them. For example, the Jews almost certainly were commanded after the Babylonic exile to submit to foreign kings. Imagine you are people who believe that you have a revelation.
Really?
Yeah, that's it's clear. You should submit to foreign kings, meaning you are ordered to be low and degraded.
As a punishment again, as a
Sorry. And that's this really putting yokes and chains in you. Allah said the final messenger will remove the yokes and the chains from you.
Subhanallah.
So the divine is sovereign, is at liberty to put yokes or remove them. In the final messenger, he said, this is not going to happen. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
But only based on his report. And since he reported that and obliged that to himself, this is impossible to be violated. And that's what in the final Sharia enacted.
Very
So that's it. And from that, we know then, but with the basic ruling for sincerity, essentially say that you can eat everything in vase until other evidences come, is that the basic situation then involves fruits, animals, and so on. Basically, they are good and can be consumed, unless the Sharia specifies something, or you find by experimentation, lab experiment, that this mushroom is poisonous. Obviously, in a sense, a human being would abstain from eating it. But if you find it's poisonous, then based on that, based on animal experiments, you announce that scientifically, and the scholar will say, this is poisonous, taking it, meaning you are committing suicide, unjustified in Sharia, it's haram to take because of that. We have established from the general rule, it's not tayyibat, it is poisonous, and you are not allowed to kill yourself. Both together result in this hukum for this specific mushroom, for example. That's haram because it's poisonous, and it's still prohibited that you poison yourself. You are not at liberty to kill yourself. You are not allowed to kill yourself arbitrarily. There is other situation which is possible, like istishhad and so on, seeking martyrdom. That's another more detailed issue. From that, you can combine. But as a general rule, everything should be possible to consume, unless it's poisonous or filthy. You can prove it in the lab, and then you have the conclusion. Or a prohibition comes specifically, then it must be having certain aspects which is bad. It's not as an aspect that if you consume it is not a good food. It may be that if you consume these animals, the balance in nature will be getting out of balance. For example, the one, if we assume that really it is prohibited to eat the animals which are the predators, like lions. Why? One of the reasons, not that their meat is bad, or the meat is quite tough and dangerous, but the main reason would be that if these are being allowed to hunt and eat because they are few in numbers, then the balance in the animal world will be shifted, and you have major problems in that case. Yeah. And that's it.
Possible.
And the people have experienced that. For in Africa, I think Rhodesia, they have a campaign because the people keeping cows were upset that leopards are attacking their cows. And leopards are very tough, not the cheetah. Cheetah is weak; it doesn't attack cows. But leopard is like lions.
Leopard is big. Yeah,
so there was a license to kill leopards. Okay, they saved the cows, but then these leopards were keeping the baboons and so on and the monkeys under control. Now monkeys increased in number; they attack the plantations.
Exactly.
So there are more hidden things about good and evil than just straightforward. I can eat it; it doesn't poison me. Yeah.
Yep.
The same apply with khanzir. The issue with contamination as well, because but another important issue is that this animal is created to be the rubbish collector of nature. Leave it to that job. Don't eat it. Leave it for that job because it eats everything.
So when Allah says it's khabith or it's najis, sorry.
But both in that sense, it could be because the balance of nature. But in the case of we know that the meat and so on is having problem with worms and so on, and also the type of fat is having certain problems also for human compatibility.
Yeah. It might be hard.
It's a more complex issue of khabith. Khabith is not only that food tastes good and smells nice, and if I eat it, I feel happy. That's not only consideration. It's more complex than that.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
Okay. Well, just lamha, but. As I said, Allah is not at obligation to take these things into consideration. Up to the limit that it becomes impossible to comply, then it will be takalif bima la yutaq. That will be contradicting the divine nature of justice. You cannot make you takalif bima la yutaq. Let's say you should fly, but I don't give you wings and you're not allowed to use planes. That's commanding the impossible. Such a command can come from some mentally deranged, not from the perfect knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. So the claim like some Ash'ari claim it is possible is a major blunder in their thinking. Because
it clearly violates the Quran anyway. It clearly
it
violates
violates
the
the Quran, but
Quran.
violates reason before that. But they did not see the issue of violating reason because they don't understand that the Qudra is related to the contingent and to the rational, not to the impossible. They did not recognize that point. And that's what let them fall into contradictions in many issues, including Qadar and Jabr and so on.
Say that again, Ustad. Say that part again.
What again?
What was the major root mistake of the Ash'ari that they did not understand?
They thought that they did not understand that Qudra relate only to the contingent and reasonable, the executable,
Yes,
not the impossible. Otherwise, Allah becomes contradictory, become possible and impossible at the same time.
Exactly. They overemphasized on an imaginary Qudra. Yeah.
Imaginary Qudra.
Yeah.
The same with Christian. When come say, oh, Allah has a Qudra, he can split himself and have a son.
Yeah.
Then he can as well not exist and can disappear. Reason collapses, divinity collapses, nothing makes any sense. Exactly. In a state of permanent mental derangement and permanent senility. You have to choose either permanent senility or rationality.
Yep.
There's no other choice. That's a fundamental choice after all consideration. So I don't want to go that deep in these things, but that one mistake and two is that what ended them there. And they didn't recognize, for example, that future events which Allah did not decide to happen yet and created are impossible to know in advance because they're not created. He did not decide them to happen. So they're unknown, impossible to know. They say, oh, everything, including future events, because they are something. They are not something yet. They don't become something yet unless Allah decides to make them to become something. Otherwise, he is acting by necessity, which is impossible. Then he is not necessarily existing, and at the same time, contradiction again.
You know, the verses are so clear.
So the issues of rationality there is very important, but it needs a little bit deeper scrutiny than that. Then many issues, including Qadar, including Sharia, will be settled.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the core is the divine sovereignty, absolute divine freedom.
Yes, freedom.
Yeah. Which is by necessity by reason, because it's the divine being, necessity existing. It fits with wisdom, and it is itself wisdom. So when you say that the wise one does act only because it fulfills a certain wisdom, that's for a limited being. Outside him, there's something. The one necessarily existing, he is the wisdom.
He is the wisdom.
That's the solution.
He's complete wisdom.
Otherwise, you end either infinite regress or a contradiction.
Complete wisdom, yeah.
So the question will say, his absolute freedom to choose does not mean his choice is arbitrary and nonsensical. That applies for contingent being. Yeah. For the system existing, it is the wisdom. By definition, he is the wisdom. He is the ultimate reason. He is the ultimate rationality and wisdom. It's not something outside him. It is him.
Mm-hmm.
It is him. There's so many infinite variables there which nobody can comprehend except possibly him, not us. But for finite being, we think, oh, I can do this or this or this. I can rank this is more beneficial, this is more beneficial. Who told you that the whole contingent reality can be ordered linearly? Maybe it has a 2 dimension, maybe 5 dimensions, and then there's no way to order them. You have to choose some, but you have another choice principles. In reality, the reality is infinite dimensionally complex. The infinite many variables to be taken. But this is immediate ability to Allah in his action and knowledge. That's meaning he is the wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only solution. The solution is infinite regress, which is not possible, or Jabr, mechanism. He becomes a mechanism. But if he's mechanism, it doesn't make any sense to talk about knowledge. So future events are not known because he's a dead, deaf, blind nature. Yeah. But it's an impossibility. So impossibility. The only solution is that the absolute freedom is essential, the most important attribute of the divine necessary existing, which necessitates absolute freedom and sovereign act.
By the way, in relation to absolute freedom, Ustad, we always emphasize so that people don't misunderstand. Because you know, people have a preconceived notion. They say, oh, how are you saying Allah does not know the future? They get emotional, etc. We always emphasize that Allah sees and knows all potentialities, all contingent possibilities.
Yeah. And he decide which will happen, or he may decide postpone the decision. And the Quran says clearly, وآخرون مرجون لأمر الله. And the other evidence we said, for example, that's about the Surah Tawbah. But when he addressed to Musa, when he said to his brother, go and spoke to Pharaoh softly, maybe he will become righteous, maybe he would remember. Huh?
Yes, exactly. Perhaps.
The question, if it is well known in advance that he will not be like that firmly, and Allah knew it as they claim, then he's just misleading Musa.
Yeah, exactly.
Sending him to an vision, he knows it's impossible.
Ustad, by the way, you know this masala, we always say
this is so obvious, but the people were blinded by some imaginary construction which they did not think deep enough to go through it.
That's what I was going to say. It's actually so qat'i, it's so muhkam that it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. I'll tell you an example where taqleed and sometimes the overwhelming environment put you in a spot. Al-Razi was discussing that issue when it came in a certain way. I don't remember where it is, but and then he discussed and mentioned various points of view and mentioned the point of view of Shaitan al-Taq. What's his name?
No, it was Hisham al-Hakam, was it not?
Hisham al-Hakam. And said, he mentioned the point of view, he said, if the future is known as if it existed, then it must happen. Allah's will is irrelevant. So Allah cannot be acted in freedom, even in eternity.
Oh Lord.
He must be dead, like dead nature, have no free choice. Al-Razi mentioned this. He has no answer. He said, Hakam said, no, he said, but we stick to what our scholar said, that he knows things in advance, but is not comparing him somehow. And you mentioned the usual example of the blind man. You say blind man go to a pothole, and you know if nothing happened, he will fall there. And he compare the human expectation and anticipation with the divine comprehensive knowledge, which is impossible. But this is the usual example. They said, look at, you see a blind man going to a pothole, and he doesn't have his stick, and you conclude he must fall there. That's not comparing him. He's still freely moving. But this is a mistake. This is not an example you can mention for the divine knowledge. Because divine is the one who has the absolute control of the events now, and the one created the ones in the past. All of them.
All of them, yeah.
The blind man is not your own creation. He came from his house. You have nothing to do with him. You happen to see him. So that's not the same situation. Allah looking in the future. But they give that example and they think, khalas, we solved the problem. Alhamdulillah, no problem. It's still possible to have divine human freedom or divine freedom. It's both are not possible. That
doesn't make sense.
It's not human freedom. Human freedom we can negotiate. It may be possible, maybe because a created one, a limited one. But the divine freedom is so fundamental. Otherwise, it will tend to be a dead, blind definition.
That's actually a very good book title as well.
But the problem with this blind, dead nature, which is the same time necessarily existing, is internally contradictory. It's not possible. It won't work. That's more of a type of like ontological proof of the existence of the divine. I have developed the proof now. I think it reached the level of mathematical proof.
Of which one, Ustad? Which one?
That there must be a necessarily existing being.
Yes.
There's no way the reality can be only contingent. That's not possible. That would put reason. Okay. All this must have emerged or initiated or created by some necessarily existing being. Now, created act is either absolute spontaneity or the absolute freedom. Otherwise, you have infinite regress, or by acting in necessity. Now, acting in necessity, you can take how things can act in necessity, which models we can envisage and imagine. By emanation, something radiating out of you, something splitting from you, but that's all not possible because necessary existing being is like a point. And radiating nothing.
Summit.
So how it can do anything by necessity, which makes sense. So it has to do an act by necessity, but the act by necessity must be originated by a previous act, and a previous act, and previous act, to be infinite regress again. So such an entity, necessarily existing, acting by necessity, is an impossibility.
I see.
So you could call an ontological proof or proof based on the divine freedom. All what you need is that the cosmos, whatever we see, is contingent. That's all what we need.
Which is evident.
Yeah. Which is by necessity, because we're starting point of view, I exist, I'm looking in myself, I'm starting to think. So So you don't need a cosmological proof, the complicated one. No, the proof that the initial condition of the universe have multiple choices, even two or many. Two is enough to establish that there be a chooser. But many are necessary if you want to use the so-called fine-tuning argument, which is psychologically very compelling, but the problem is it shoots so much over the board that it starts becoming confusing in itself. It is a valid one, and can be, but the arguing against them would be taking you into a circle. It may be like this, it may be evolution, maybe like this, no, guided evolution. You don't need all of that. You don't even need the initial parameters are choosable.
Yeah.
If you talk this semi-ontological, semi-ontological. But this is very deep. We are not discussing today. But ultimately, the issue, which many people say, because they take the Quran and say, وَنَحْسَنُ اللَّهِ حُكْمَ لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ. That's the Quran addressing human being in normalcy, that Allah ruling is better for you anyway. It's good for you. That's to make people absorb it in the normal sense. We say, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ اللَّهِ حُكْمَ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. People who believe, they know the ruling of Allah is better. Intrinsically better. But for the people who are not at the level of sophistication and willing to go to such depth, oh yeah, it's quite good. It, for example, prohibiting, for example, homosexuality, men cohabiting with men, will reduce the danger or eliminate the danger of developing of AIDS. And think, oh, that's good. It's good. Things like that. That's good for average human beings, and also people who are not coming from another cultures and civilization. You start showing them how good the Sharia regulate things. How, for example, the injunction that you should be good to your parents.
This is actually a fundamental.
Make the society nicely synchronized. You don't have this evil situation that the elderly are dumped in homes or forsaken and things like that. That appeal to the real feeling.
Yeah, actually, the Sharia is one.
It's good for carrying da'wah. It's good for carrying da'wah. See how good is this regulation? How effective it is. Oh, Siyam. Look, one of the best effective ways for prolonging life and preventing cancer is intermittent fasting. That's the fasting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so on. And even the Quran said, "An wattaqun." Usually interpreted that you gain taqwa from, meaning consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Quran does not say yattaqun Allah. Yattaqun. They may ward evil. They protect themselves from what? For everything. From evil ideas, from zina, but also from cancer.
Yeah.
But this is fine details. If you get to fundamental principle, you are in the firm ground, and then you can relax. The details, I may study it. I am rather busy man, a simple man. I'm going in the morning. I'm running my truck to carry goods. I have no time for these details. But I know fundamentally, Allah's ruling is absolute and must be obeyed. And it's the best for me also, in here and hereafter. If you have that, you have the Tawheed with it.
Exactly.
If you discuss with the common man like us, to say, this, leave me alone. I don't want to discuss how good it is to be nice to the parents or how bad it is. Leave that is good. It will work itself.
Actually, this is profound about the Quran, that it's able to talk to different audiences at the same time. You know the famous hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib where he says, the lowest level of Iman or the worshippers is the worship of a fearful man. He worships Allah or shows servitude due to fear of Jahannam. The second one is the ibadah of a tajir. He only worships Allah for manfa'a, etc. And the other one worships Allah because Allah is Allah. Allah's worthy of being worshipped.
Yeah.
And that's what. So there's different types of mindsets and personalities that the Quran and the Sunnah is suitable towards.
But that's the way how human work. Like for example, in the ayahs of Mawarith, some people say, why it is division this way? Especially the first ayah.
Yeah.
When he mentioned آباؤكم وأبناؤكم, your parents and your offspring. You don't know who is more beneficial for you, appealing to human feeling. Exactly. Usually you think, I will give more money to that who will be beneficial for me in my old age or in this dunya somehow. Allah said, don't worry, I'm taking care of that. You don't know that, I know better than you.
Yeah.
But when the reason that the children are usually giving more than the parents, except in rare occasions, odd cases, is that they are starting their life and they will build a new generation. They are building the future. And that the money is needed for the dunya.
Yeah.
And the parents are out. They will die soon. And also when they pass away, the money will go again to the children and the grandchildren anyway. Yeah. So Don't worry about that, but they need some support now, so they get some independence and respect and good treatment by force by the law of inheritance or something like that, and compensated for that son who suppose in normal situation lives until older and stay longer than the parents, so he will care for them. Now he's gone. Who will care for them? It gets up for inheritance, so they can overage that time until they pass away. And the money will go to the next generation. If not consumed, the next generation. And will be consumed and distributed in the society. Allah knows all these details. Leave that to me. You don't know who is closer to you and beneficial for you. I know this. Direct benefit and the indirect benefit. For example, these parents who consume the part of the inheritance, they needed to consume it because they are just now not working, so it will be pure consumption. Then the wealth will be spread in the society. This way I can spread wealth. Huge capitals cannot develop. It is spreading. That's the reason the British system, the feudal system, is that the first son gets the title and gets all the money. This keeps the feudal line in power. Allah wants to destroy the feudal lines. With wealth to spread. But in a systematic, gentle way, going generation over generation, not by revolution and cutting necks with a guillotine. You can philosophize that.
Yeah, you are right.
But this is all irrelevant. This is the ruling of Allah. You can't cooperate, otherwise you are a kafir. That's what we need. What Tawheed. What are things people can sit, sharply can write his books and so on. The problem when that result is regarded as the reason of the law. When you
change the law because of it. When it leads to the change.
And then you say, okay, now because the law is made so because of this reason, now we can change it to fulfill the reason better. No, you will not be able to do the law better than Allah. Stop there. Just stick to the Nas and the Ilal which mentioned the book of Allah and the Messenger.
Exactly.
That's how the law is enacted. That the law is so good and attractive and make you more persuasive and attract people to Islam. That's the job should be of Shatibiyya, but not the job. That approach is not the job for you to deduce the law. That's just to understand the law and appreciate its goodness. Perfect. It's a good study, no problem. The problem is, hey, we follow maqasid. No, you don't follow maqasid. Maqasid are there. They are already fulfilled. Don't worry about them. I need to see what is the ruling about this and this issue. Then I'll go to the text and the principle elected by Sharia. Believing firmly, they will fill the maqasid automatically from the background, as they do. I don't need to bother about the maqasid. Knowing the maqasid having good aspect for the rulers. Because if you know this is the maqasid of Sharia, then this will guide me to find ways, means, and procedures and things like that, which fulfill the maqasid the best way. In the area where I have liberty, like ways and means and procedures. If I know all these inheritance law, besides support and so on for the next of the kin and so on, but also intend deliberately to divide wealth and distribute it widely, and also the ayah, this will guide me to say, if I put fees, if I put taxes, legitimate taxes, study it properly, if I put this and this, then I should keep all my mind always, how can I do it so that it distributes wealth more than the other solution? If I have two solutions, both are halal, I choose the one who distributes wealth, not concentrate wealth. Guide me to apply the Sharia better. Using ways and means and how. That's the maqasid will help there.
In the field of ibaha, basically.
Instead of it's mubah. There are various versions. Which one I choose? If I know the maqasid of Sharia generally, then I will choose the one who fulfills the maqasid as much as possible. Better. Because you can balance that. You can study that. But this maqasid will establish the way we know that from rational consideration about the inheritance, but also for the clear text of the ayah. Allah does not the money to be concentrated between the aghniya. This, why he doesn't want that? It has other purposes further, because if it's concentrated with the aghniya, we have discrepancy, we have jealousy, we have tension, we have ultimately bloodshed. So he prevented that. But as visible, you see it clearly in the universe, is that money is concentrated, deconcentrated, distributed. Not whether we had why distribution is better than concentration. Someone could say concentration is good because they could have big capitals and have big investment. Allah tells you this is not good for you. It's not good for you. Better for you, it is distributed. Maybe the development will be a little bit slow at the beginning, but it will be more balanced, and you have more consistent and balanced and peaceful society.
Yeah. And it will avert harms that you do not see.
Exactly. Preventing harm is more important in the situation in Allah's eyes, and for you, you will recognize better for you.
Yeah.
And so on. So that's the maqasid. That's maybe a casual answer on the issue of maqasid, and goodness and badness. What is the divine command clear? I would say, according to the ultimate stability of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the divine command defines goodness. When Allah commands something, it becomes good by His own command.
Yeah.
But in all the sense of goodness, which makes any sense when you talk about the divine. For human, we know we have to do relative to other things. But for Allah, there's no relativity. It's referred to Himself. So Bani Israel, when they ordered to submit to foreign kings, which is almost certainly well established from the scripture of Daniel, and after that, after Kabbalah example, with this command, it became good for Bani Israel.
Yeah.
Although it is demeaning, it is hurtful, it is painful, it makes your life miserable, but it's good for you.
Actually,
the moment it is abolished by Muhammad, it became good for you, the opposite.
Can we not say this? Of course, again, there's maybe no point in getting into these circles, but even if it was bad for them, they still need to obey it. Even if they saw some
whatever, it is good. By the divine command, it became good in some more comprehensive sense than the goodness in human conception. And then we can go there and find details.
As in, do we need to even go? Do we need to even go to that? We can just say Allah commanded it, so it's right, even if it's khabith in of itself.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit contradictory. I know something can be right shar'an, but khabith intrinsically, morally.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever. This fine details. I think indulging in that, leave this for maqasid and philosophical. I don't think for the 99.999% of the people is of no relevance. It's maybe more disturbing than beneficial.
Yeah.
I think the fundamental philosophy is that the divine command is absolute, unnegotiable, and must comply with.
And this Sharia is the tayyibat are permitted and the evil things
That's
are
especially the Sharia, but if you define tayyibat properly, it's not something like that apple trees are good somehow because of a law above Allah. It is good because Allah created this specific universe so that apple trees are good, and this other mushroom is poisonous. So this by publicity, that's the way Allah fixed the universe to be like that. Yeah. For example, in a universe where creatures progress only by splitting, like amoeba.
Yes.
There's no definition of zina. How can you define zina? There's no.
Exactly.
It's nonsensical.
Yeah.
So going into that more excessively will lead you nowhere. So my advice in this issue, any issue with maqasid and so on, is very nice to show how the Sharia for these human beings, for this life, especially for non-Muslims, how it is good, better than the law you have now or your customs. That's great to attract people to Islam. But when they come to Islam, say, is actually the divine sovereignty. That's Tawheed. That was just bonus to open your eyes because you were in complete misguidance. Now you are in the guidance. That's the fundamentally. But you, as a newcomer to Islam, if you are a da'iyah, some newcomer or excellent da'iyah, keep that in mind and still argue the people about how good is the ruling. You are suffering from your disobedient children because you are in a custom or civilization who is sick, etc. That's good for that.
Yeah.
But the fundamental creed point should be clear in everyone's mind. But that's enough. That's what we need. When we want to deduce hukum in a new situation, then we have to analyze it based on text and based on the reality of the things themselves, the things of them, not about the maqasid. Interesting that this Sharia, if it's from Allah, and we have proven that, at least we believe that's based on absolutely established proof. If it is true, then the maqasid will be fulfilled automatically. Don't worry about that. Just worry about derive the correct hukum. What to do about that.
Yeah.
That will be both the philosophically sound and the practical way. But as a general rule, usul al-ahkam, deriving hukum, defining for analyzing a new type of company or a new type of contract, like for example the contracts of insurance, which was discussed like several centuries ago, and the Hanafi came to the conclusion which contracts do we have already studied in time past, because they can't get out of the study. They did not know the basic coding about contracts is flexibility. They did not know that. So they checked, we have so-called something called Daman, something like that, and none look like this one, or this one is haram.
Uh-huh.
That's the mistake of the derivation. The people of Maqas will say, but actually, if we allow that, then it will be better for business, better for transaction, crossing the oceans and so on. It should be allowed. That is the wrong way of deduction. The correct deduction is this is a new contract. The aspects which are objectionable there in some contracts, like gharar, contract is not, that's gharar, or misleading contracts and so on are haram because there's a misleading. But insurance contracts can be and will be formulated so that there will be no misleading aspects or minimally misleading as humanly possible. Someone say, but the Western contracts, they have this called the small writing. Solution is easy. No small writing. Everything must be clear. Otherwise, the state will step and hammer the insurance company and break their head. That's it. That's the solution. Don't say it maybe there's gharar. No. Must be prevented, like in any other contract. The same with transaction like buying in the market. You go buying in the market goods, and it turns out the dealer has the bad goods in the bottom, like the famous hadith. Put his hand under and found the bottom of the date trees are wet, and the top is nice dry. So why is this wet there? Say yesterday it was the rain that became wet. Say I'm not disputing this, but why is the wet is below and the good ones in the top? من غشنا فليس منا. Who cheat us is not one of us. That you are allowed to do trade does not give you a privilege that you hide the bad aspects of the. Everything must be disclosed. And this for all contracts. So arguing about the insurance, for example, that it has gharar, because it's done by capitalists who cheating each other all the time, unless the law break their neck.
Exactly.
Not because the contract intrinsically wrong. There are some contracts so intrinsically فيها غرض. Like say, I sell you this bird, shoot anyone and I sell you. No, because it's not known which one is it will be shot. The shot will work. Doesn't work. Selling a bird while it's flying. That's intrinsically غلط. This buy is not permissible because intrinsically it cannot be made by any way. It become so clear that nobody will be cheated ultimately or one be losing excessively. So that has to be a little bit deeper, but the way to do it is to do it going from usul and qawaid, not from maqasid.
Usul and qawaid,
yeah. Because the reason for these is that cheating and undefined contracts are prohibited in Islam.
You know, before
it had because these contracts are allowed to have cheating and so on, this will cause hatred between the people. And ultimately, it ends in some people gaining money and power illegitimately, and some people arresting others. And then one day you will find someone who come and kill you because you cheated him in a big transaction. And they have bloodshed. You have a society similar to the animals, not like humans. Allah wanted humans to be in a high level of interaction, cooperation, love and affection, and humility, not oppression. So that's how we defined what human being should be.
Exactly.
So, you know, but this will be fulfilled. You have to just study the contract themselves and make a decision, and they will fulfill bi'idhnillah. If it's derived correctly, it will fulfill.
Okay, so it's coming up to 11:30 now.
I think maybe just finish the paragraph you have and we start.
I've already finished the we'll do the next one next week, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. So it's halfway down, page 141. It's a good place to stop as well, inshallah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, same time next week, inshallah. 9:30, 9 o'clock, inshallah.
9 is good. Okay. But I think the discussion at the end is good. Related to the issue of sovereignty and so on. All the things a little bit too much deeper than most audience will maybe absorb, but it's helpful from time to time to go a bit deep. But if you stick to the fundamental principle, you are safe. All these are cream, like icing on the cream, as cream with the icing on the we don't need it. But you have it, that's fine. And you should not have it too plenty, even in the case of cake. Then you will develop heart problems and so on.
Exactly.
Blue moons, you have cream. Not ever. If you continue, it will cause you heart problems and arteriosclerosis and so on. No. Just rarely.
Well said.
From time to time, just for enjoyment from time to time. Just stick to the basics. Sorry, the solid food. The solid food, it will keep you alive well.
Well said, Ustad.
And the garnishment is good from time to time. Otherwise, it usually have bad effects if it's done excessively. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good.
Okay, inshallah, it's coming up to.
inshallah. يلا, we conclude.
Thank you, Steph.
Good discussion. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد، وبارك على محمد وآل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. وليلتكم مباركة وتصبحون على خير، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.